What's the most terrifying true story you've ever heard? Story 1. Dude, the pariah diving incident is nightmare fuel because it's not ghosts or demons or whatever. It's literally a pipe, just a giant industrial metal straw at the bottom of the ocean deciding to inhale 5 human beings like a damn vacuum cleaner from hell. These divers were repairing an oil pipeline underwater when somebody on the platform above accidentally opened pressure equalization, which sounds harmless until you realize it basically turned the pipe into a 30-inch wide death slurpy tube. Like imagine putting your hand over a pool drain as a kid. Now multiply that suction by rip a truck through concrete levels of force. One diver got sucked in first, then the others tried helping because that's what divers do. And boom, chain reaction. 5 guys dragged into total blackness inside this freezing oil pipe packed with murky water and floating debris. Like being trapped inside a wet coffin shaped like a sewer level from a horror game. And the worst part? One guy survived for hours in an air pocket deep inside the pipeline, alive, breathing, waiting. Rescue teams literally knew where he was, but couldn't reach him in time because the pressure differences were too insane. Basically, the ocean turned the pipe into a loaded gun nobody could safely touch. Bro probably heard rescue workers banging on the pipe walls while sitting alone in pitch black seawater. Absolute nightmare. My brain would factory reset instantly. Story 2. The Nutty Putty Cave incident is one of the few stories that can make fully grown adults panic just from hearing a diagram explained. Like people read about it once and suddenly decide caves are canceled forever. So this guy, John Jones, went exploring a cave system in Utah back in 2009. Pretty normal spelunking trip at first. Then he crawled into the wrong passage thinking it connected to a larger chamber. It didn't. Instead, he squeezed headfirst into this insanely narrow vertical crevice that kept getting tighter the farther down he went. And when I say narrow, I mean human body jammed into a geological typo. Narrow. At one point, the space was roughly the size of a washing machine slot turned sideways. Imagine trying to shimmy through the inside of an air duct while gravity actively hates you. Then he got stuck upside down for hours. Actually, not hours. Over a day. Rescue teams tried everything. Ropes, pulleys, engineers, multiple rescue crews. At one point, they almost got him out too, which somehow makes it emotionally worse. But the cave walls were so tight, rescuers could barely even reach him without getting trapped themselves. And being upside down that long is catastrophic for the human body. Your heart basically has to fight physics nonstop like a busted sump pump trying to drain a flooded basement. Blood pools where it shouldn't, pressure builds, organs start failing. Your own circulation slowly turns against you. The cave eventually became his tomb because removing the body safely was considered too dangerous. That's the horror right there. Not monsters, not darkness. Just one wrong turn, one tiny bad decision in a cramped tunnel underground, and suddenly the entire planet is sitting on your chest forever. Story 3. The people who jumped during 9/11 haunt me more than almost anything else because it forces your brain into a decision no human being should ever have to imagine. People always talk about the towers collapsing, which was horrifying, obviously, but there were also people trapped way above the impact zones with fire, smoke, and heat closing in around them. And at a certain point, some realized there were no exits left. That's the part your mind keeps trying to reject. Because jumping from a skyscraper is so against every survival instinct we have that your body physically recoils thinking about it. Your brain screams, nope, before the thought even finishes loading, which means the conditions inside those floors had to be even worse. Imagine standing hundreds of feet in the air with smoke blacking out the hallways, heat building, oxygen disappearing, windows becoming the only source of breathable air. People pressed against broken openings just trying to inhale something that didn't burn. Office workers in dress shirts and heels suddenly trapped in a disaster movie nobody understood yet. And then some made the impossible choice. Not because they wanted to jump. That wording always bothered me. It was more like the building itself became unlivable. like being forced to choose between two versions of death while the entire world watched helplessly from below. There's footage where bystanders on the ground can actually be heard reacting when bodies fell, which honestly breaks me because everybody involved was trapped in the same nightmare from different angles. The people above, the firefighters below, the crowds staring upward, knowing they couldn't do anything. That's what stays with me. Not spectacle, just human beings cornered so completely that open air started looking like the less terrifying option. Story 4. Lake Neos is terrifying because it sounds exactly like the kind of fake science horror premise somebody pitches for a sci-fi channel movie at 2 a.m. Except, nope. Completely real. Nature just occasionally decides to remind humanity we're basically ants renting space on a hostile rock. So in 1986, this crater lake in Cameroon basically exploded without exploding, which makes no sense until you hear the science. The bottom of the lake had been quietly storing huge amounts of dissolved carbon dioxide for years under insane pressure, kind of like a giant soda bottle sitting underground. Then something disturbed it, and the lake burped, except instead of a little fizz sound, it released a massive, invisible cloud of CO2 all at once. A literal rolling blanket of gas dense enough to hug the ground and suffocate entire villages in their sleep. That's the detail that destroys me. People didn't even know what was happening. Carbon dioxide has no color, no smell, no dramatic warning. Imagine waking up dizzy and confused while your body suddenly feels like it forgot how breathing works. Livestock dropped dead. Families were found where they slept. Entire villages just silent. Around 1,700 people died. Thousands of animals too. And because CO2 is heavier than air, the gas rolled downhill like some evil fog from a fantasy movie. Except invisible, which honestly makes it scarier. Your brain can't even fight it because there's nothing to see. And somewhere out there right now are other lake scientists actively monitor because apparently Earth contains multiple giant air-poisoning soda bottles waiting to misbehave. Cool. Awesome. Love living on this planet. Story 5. This one scares me because there's no blood, no dramatic attack, no masked psycho jumping out of closets, just a guy slowly testing boundaries like he's probing a fence for weak spots. My friend was on a cruise ship, partying at the bar, flirting a little, letting some dude buy drinks. Normal vacation behavior. People act like that automatically means consent to literally anything afterward, which is already insane. Flirting is not a legally binding blood oath. Relax. Anyway, by the end of the night, she wanted to go back alone, but this guy kept pushing, not aggressively enough to trigger full panic immediately either, which honestly makes it worse. Every creepy escalation sounded just reasonable enough in the moment. Let me walk you back. Can I use your bathroom? Can I sit for a second? It's like watching somebody inch their foot into a closing door 1 centimeter at a time. Eventually, she got him to leave. Huge relief, right? Nightmare over? Nope. Later that night, she accidentally got trapped in the bathroom somehow and had to call ship security. And while security is outside her room, here comes bathroom bandit Usain Bolt, sprinting down the hallway, waving her spare room key, apologizing because he thought she'd called security about him. Turns out he stole the key earlier while sitting on her bed, which means this dude fully intended to come back later while she was asleep. That realization would make my soul leave my body instantly, because suddenly all those small boundary pushes rewind in your brain like a horror montage, and you realize the entire interaction was calculated from the start. That's the terrifying part. Predators rarely look like movie villains. Half the time they look like overly persistent dudes everybody tells women not to overreact to. Story 6. The Junko Furuta case is one of those stories people stumble into online once and then wish they could uninstall from their memory like corrupted software. Seriously, there are true crime cases, and then there's this thing which feels less like a crime and more like humanity hitting a system error. She was a teenage girl in Japan who got kidnapped by a group of boys connected to local gangs, and for over a month, 44 days, which is basically an entire summer break from hell, they kept her trapped and tortured her in ways so brutal. Most summaries intentionally leave details out because normal human brains are not built to carry that information around comfortably. And what wrecks me isn't even just the violence. It's the amount of people who apparently knew something was wrong and did nothing. Neighbors heard noises. Adults suspected things. People looked the other way because the attackers had gang connections, and everybody was scared of becoming involved. That's the part that sticks in my throat. Not monsters in ski masks. Just ordinary cowardice stacking together brick by brick until it becomes a prison cell. And afterward, some of the sentences were ridiculously light considering the scale of the torture, which somehow makes the whole thing feel even uglier. Like reality itself failed a morality test. Every time I hear about this case, I think about how terrifying it is that human beings can get used to anything, even horror happening in the next room. Story 7. The San Isidro McDonald's massacre is terrifying because it attacks one of the most basic assumptions humans have, that boring places are safe. A bank? Maybe dangerous. Dark alley at 2 a.m.? Sure. But a McDonald's in the middle of the day? That's supposed to be one of the safest, most aggressively normal places on Earth. Sticky tables, screaming kids, smell of fries, permanently fused into the walls. The biggest threat is usually the ice cream machine being broken again. Then, in 1984, a gunman walked into one in San Isidro, California, and started shooting people completely at random. Families eating lunch, employees working shifts, kids sitting there with happy meals. Just ordinary people whose final thought that day was probably something painfully normal like, I should have ordered nuggets. That's the horror of mass shootings, honestly. The randomness. Your brain wants there to be logic so badly, some warning sign visible from orbit. But most victims wake up thinking they're having a completely average Tuesday. And back then, events like this still felt almost unimaginable in America on that scale. Now we hear mass shooting. So often people's brains process it like weather updates, which might honestly be the scariest evolution of all. Society adapted to the unacceptable through repetition. What really gets me, though, is imagining the confusion in the first seconds. Because in a McDonald's, loud popping noises don't instantly register as gunfire. Your brain probably thinks trays fell over, balloons popped, construction outside, anything except your world is ending. And by the time reality catches up, chaos already owns the room. Story 8. The Lake Bottom murders feel terrifying in this very specific slasher movie way that makes your caveman instincts start screaming immediately. 4 teenagers camping by a lake in Finland in 1960. Summer night, isolated wilderness. Just tents, trees, water, and darkness stretching forever. Already my survival instincts are filing complaints because forests at night always sound like they're actively listening to you. Every snapped twig suddenly feels personal. Then, sometime during the night, somebody attacked them through the tent. 3 were killed brutally. 1 survived despite severe injuries. And the details afterward only made the whole thing feel more cursed. The killer was never definitively identified. Decades of theories, suspects, dead ends, weird behavior from possible witnesses. The kind of unsolved case where every answer just creates 3 new questions. And yeah, one of the most unsettling rumors was that the killer may have attended the funerals, which is nightmare fuel because now you're imagining grieving families standing shoulder to shoulder with the person who caused all of it while nobody realizes. Like evil hiding in plain sight, wearing church clothes. What gets me most, though, is how vulnerable camping actually is once you think about it for more than 5 seconds. People romanticize it because of Instagram and outdoorsy YouTubers chopping firewood shirtless or whatever. But realistically, you are voluntarily becoming a burrito inside thin fabric while unconscious in the middle of nowhere. A tent is not protection. It's scented wrapping paper for bears and murderers. And in the Bodum case, by the time screams started, if there even were screams, there was nowhere to run. Just dark forest, cold water, confusion, panic. That's why the story lingers. It feels horrifyingly possible. Story 9. Honestly, the DuPont Teflon story scares me more than serial killers because you can't stab a corporation. You can't run from it either. It's just sitting there in a suit, poisoning literally everybody while smiling in shareholder meetings. So DuPont used this chemical called PFOA to make Teflon. Non-stick pans, waterproof stuff, stain-resistant carpets. All that futuristic wow science crap from the 50s. Except the chemical basically does not die at all. Scientists call them forever chemicals, which already sounds like something a supervillain would yell before activating a laser. This stuff survives in the environment for so long, it's basically the glitter of toxic waste. You spill it once, and congratulations. Earth owns it now. And DuPont allegedly knew for years it was dangerous. Internal studies, poisoned workers, contaminated water near factories. The whole thing. One town's drinking water got so polluted, cattle were literally developing black teeth and organs that looked microwaved, which, sorry, imagine pulling up to your farm and your cows look like they fought in a zombie apocalypse. Now, the chemicals are in rainwater, oceans, bloodstreams, newborn babies, everybody. Humanity accidentally speedrun a global contamination side quest because corporations wanted Pan's eggs slide around on better. That's what freaks me out. A haunted house only gets you if you walk inside it. This, you were born into it. Story 10. Gamma ray bursts are one of my favorite examples of the universe casually reminding humanity we are not the main characters. So somewhere out in space, occasionally, a star dies in such a violently ridiculous way that it releases more energy in a few seconds than our sun will produce during its entire lifetime. Billions of years compressed into cosmic rage quitting. And if one of those beams happened to point directly at Earth from close enough away, yeah, potential extinction event. The scary part is gamma ray bursts move at light speed, which means there's basically no dramatic movie buildup. No scientists yelling, "We have 12 hours." Nah. The universe would just instantly microwave the atmosphere from halfway across the galaxy, like some celestial sniper shot. Scientists think it could strip away parts of the ozone layer too, meaning afterward, sunlight itself becomes the enemy. Imagine surviving the initial cosmic blast just to realize the sky has turned into an unpaid intern for death. UV radiation everywhere, food chains collapsing, oceans getting wrecked near the surface, and the beam itself is absurdly narrow compared to space, which is somehow funnier and scarier. It's like the universe firing a rifle across billions of miles, and Earth's survival strategy is basically, hopefully we're not standing there. But honestly, what unsettles me most is how random it feels. Humans spend all day arguing online about taxes and celebrities and who cheated on who, while somewhere out there stars are exploding hard enough to sterilize planets by accident. Space really does not care about us at all, which, weirdly, is both terrifying and kind of freeing. Story 11. What scares me most about cartel violence in Mexico isn't even the gore people post online. It's the randomness, the feeling that normal life can suddenly stop making sense because you crossed paths with the wrong people at the wrong second. You stop at the wrong gas station, take the wrong highway at night, witness something accidentally, get mistaken for somebody else. Boom! Reality changes instantly, and the terrifying part is how deeply organized it can feel. Not random chaos. Systems. Entire regions where cartels allegedly influence police, businesses, local politics, transportation routes, even which restaurants stay open, like parallel governments running on fear instead of paperwork. Meanwhile, ordinary families are left trying to survive in this atmosphere where disappearances become this awful suspended state between hope and grief. No answers, no body, just silence, which honestly sounds psychologically worse than death sometimes. Your brain can't even finish mourning because it's permanently buffering. What if they're still alive? And then you hear about volunteer search groups, regular moms and dads literally walking through fields with shovels looking for remains because authorities either can't help, won't help, or people don't trust them enough anymore. That image destroys me every time. Parents becoming human forensic teams because the system collapsed around them. People outside Mexico sometimes imagine cartel violence as this flashy Netflix narco aesthetic. Gold guns, convoys, corridos blasting, cinematic nonsense. But for regular civilians, it's usually quieter and sadder. Fear, changing daily behavior, empty roads after dark. Certain topics nobody mentions publicly. Everybody pretending not to notice things because noticing can become dangerous. That's the horror. A society where survival partly depends on selective blindness. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, you absolute legends. Sleep with one eye open after these stories, and if reality hasn't terrified you enough yet, subscribe for more nightmare fuel next time.